Rappin with ReefBum is sponsored by Polo Reef and Champion Lighting and Supply. Hey, welcome back to the show. My name is Keith, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Dong. Dong, how you doing there, man?
Oh, very good. So you can enjoy my blue background, the blue sunset. So I actually wondering when the trend of the social media will push the sunset into red, like what it's supposed to be. Right?
We
should start a movement.
How things going with your tanks and all that sort of thing there? Everything?
The coral growing like nuts. Oh my God. Like everybody, like growing like gangbuster.
Everybody's happy, huh?
Yep.
Everybody's happy. Everybody's staying cool. Not.
76 degrees.
Yeah, that's where you keep them at. Like you try to keep them at throughout the whole year, summer, spring, fall, winter. 76.
AC.
That's pretty low.
Yeah, AC.
And you don't need. And you don't. I was gonna say. So you use it AC as your kind of like your chiller, and then your heater is probably not working terribly hard because of the ambient heat in the house, the pumps and all this stuff. Yeah.
My electricity bill actually drops because they changed the rate, how they measure the rate. So right now that our electricity is based on what hour is being used. There's a peak hour, there's off-peak hour, the super off-peak hour. So at night, that's where the heater kicks on.
Super smart, man. Smart. Hours. Yeah, you gotta kind of beat the system a little bit there, you know. Get over on the man. Well, listen, I'm really excited about tonight's show because we got quite a lineup of guests to join us. We're going to be talking about water flow in a reef tank. We've got Rich Ross, who's a biologist and co-host of Reef Beef. We've got Joe Yaiullo from Long Island Aquarium, and we've got Alex Grah from Abyzz. So quite the guest list there. But before we bring them on, I do want to thank the sponsors of the live stream. I really appreciate the support. Polo Reef, make sure to check out the latest videos from Polo Reef on YouTube. The rebuild of the 17,000-gallon reef keeps moving forward. And in the last video, the team relives the recent journey of the reef from what happened to where we are today. The team goes into fail-safe mode. That's very important. Checking everything they can think of to make sure future incidents are prevented. The Polo Reef team takes this opportunity to remind all reefers to take some time this summer and check all points and components in their reef tanks. Great advice. A thriving reef can quickly go south over a simple equipment failure, so take the time to check each component of your system and do a little proactive maintenance to ensure your reef continues to thrive. That's a PSA from Polo Reef to all of us reefers out there. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to @Polo Reef on YouTube so you don't miss any of the new videos when they drop. Other sponsor is Todd and the folks at Champion Lighting and Supply. Thanks, you guys. Fiji Live Rock. Look at this stuff, man. It's a come on, run video, run. Why aren't you running? What's going on here? It's supposed to be running. I don't know why it's not running. That's bizarre. Anyway, Fiji Live Rock is back. Yes, wild harvested live rock is back. Champion Lighting now offers cured Pucani branch and shelf rock from Fiji, as well as cured Indo live rock. Use coupon code ReefBum and get 15% off your next rock purchase. I've been told from Todd that they just got a whole new batch in. So that's you got to jump on it, folks. Take advantage of the discount. Come on, let's see if I get. Here we go. I got it to
Here we go.
Yeah, look at that. That's on the website right there. So it's just kind of showing all the different live rock that folks at Champion have. I'd be all over that stuff if I was starting a new reef tank. Maybe Rich Ross will grab some. I know he's probably going to be using his old rock in his old reef tank, but we'll talk all about that stuff. So let's bring everybody out, man. Let's get everybody out to the main stage here. What's happening there, fellas? Welcome.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, Alex. Pretty late in the evening there in Germany, eh?
Yeah, you could say early in the morning as well.
Oh, really? Nice.
It's just past 1 a.m.
Oh,
well, we
here too.
No, Rich, it's the opposite. You're
7 o'clock in New York, but I can't hear the host speaking at the moment. But I can hear Alex and Richard.
oh,
Uh-oh.
really.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear either host.
Can
Oh, really?
I can hear you fine.
Can everybody besides Joe hear me? Rich,
Yeah,
can you hear
I
me?
can hear
Alex?
Alex and
Yes,
Richard,
I can.
Okay.
and I hear Richard's sexy voice.
Rich, can you tell Joe to log out and then log back in, and then maybe that'll solve his problem?
boy.
Hey, Joe, he says to
Yes.
take off your shirt.
I don't think he
No,
just
I
said
did
that.
not
He did.
say
But I
that.
will-
He did.
But I will
did.
anyway.
No,
Okay.
he said you should log out and log back in.
Log out.
All right, I'll give it a go.
Yep. And I'll just say, Joe, it's been less than a minute, and it's you.
And it's me. Welcome to my world. Hey guys, enjoy the rest of the show.
Rich, will you be
There's my tank. You can just look at my tank.
Rich, can you be the my translator to Joe?
Yes.
Would that be cool? Okay.
Absolutely. He's gone now, though. Thank God he's gone.
Let's see if he gets back. But so here's a good question to kind of like kick off this discussion about flow in a reef tank. And Alex, maybe I know what your answer is going to be, but where does flow in a reef tank rank in a list of the top 10 most important things? You know, is it up there near number one? Is it in the middle of the pack? Is it the bottom of that top 10 list? If you guys had to put a number on it, where would flow be in terms of importance? The top 10 most important things on a reef tank.
2. I would say
2. What is the one?
Okay.
One?
Can
would
you hear
be
me,
light.
Joe?
I can hear you. I did it. Are
Okay.
you proud of me?
Good.
Here's-
Excellent.
Here's the question that I threw out to the panel, Joe.
Okay.
In terms of where does flow rank in a list of the top 10 most important things in a reef tank? Is it near number one? Is it near the bottom of that top 10 list? And so Alex put up the 2 fingers saying he ranks at number 2.
Yeah, I generally don't agree with Alex on much of anything, but I would put it at number 2 as well.
Okay.
Can you guys explain your number 2 rankings?
You go first, Joe.
My turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, lighting would be my first. And then flow, like if you don't have enough, you're never going to catch up, and things are just going to either fail right from the beginning, or as corals are growing and taking up more space and taking up, providing more hindrance to flow. If you can't keep increasing your flow, you're going to fail. I don't care what you're dosing or how much light you're using.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. Given that water is in the tank, that would probably be number 0 then. But without light, nothing would be happening, and you can still keep corals with very little flow or just the return pump. If you only have 5 or 6 frags in the tank, it's no problem. You don't need an additional flow pump. But as soon as you have bigger corals or bigger tank, that's when I think the flow is definitely number 2, because without that, as Joe said, that you can't keep up. You won't have the detritus be coming out. You won't have a proper mix in the water. All these things, they are provided with flow.
I think that it's a weird question, and I think we all kind of agree in the top 10 things, but it depends on how pedantic you want to be. You know, salt is really important too. But I just for fun, I would say flow is more important than light, because in a power outage, I care about flow. I don't care about light. So, but I really, we're quibbling about tinies here.
Yeah.
Flow is important.
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing here from the viewers is they're agreeing that it's near the top of the list. I see a lot of number 2s. So and light is being listed as number 1, and yeah, that's certainly a fair way to look at it in terms of success with a reef tank.
Yeah, atoms are very important. Protons, the strong and weak force. All of these things are very important. Boy, I'm a jerk. Okay, I'll stop being pedantic and silly.
Rich, you can be who you want to be, man. That's perfectly fine.
I want to be Shazam.
Then be Shazam.
I'd be Batman.
You'd be Batman.
Really?
Joe, what would you be?
I'm staying out of this whole thing.
All right, here's a we're already getting into some viewer questions here. Caleb is wondering what are some corals that deserve higher flow than generally recommended, and how does flow patterns influence the water quality and filtration?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, what is generally recommended? That depends on every coral and how to flow. And the flow patterns I think, are different than water quality and filtration. I think those are two separatable things. But corals that need larger flow or more flow, however we want to define that, sea fans need a lot of flow, mostly in one direction. For most of the day, like Muracella comes from places that gets between, for part of the day, between 50 and 80 centimeters a second. That's really fast. And then, acros need a lot of flow. But, I like to make the differentiation between, what we could call linear flow and mass flow, the entire body of water moving versus a jet of water moving. But I don't want to get us in the weeds yet.
Yeah,
we'll get there soon enough.
I'd say the same thing basically. There's a ton of words out there that sound all very magic with laminar and mass flow and moving the whole tank and blah blah blah. But breaking it down to the coral polyp, I think there's the right amount of flow for various different types of corals. If you have sensitive euphyllias or something, hammer corals. You don't want to blow off their polyps off the skeleton. But if you have, for example, hystrix or poculopora, the bigger they get, then you still need to make sure that the inner polyps get that flow. And I think that's one of the crucial points. The bigger the colony, the more flow you need in general to move water throughout the colony. Otherwise, you'll have detritus settling in on larger table acros, for example. You have the same thing. As the flow gets weaker towards the center of the coral, you'll have detritus settling, and then the first critters are moving in, and then you can basically just cut the coral and toss it away, or be inside at least. And I think that's something to have a look at. And then, of course, the size of the tank matters. And then also, what's the decoration like? And does one coral block the flow to another coral? It makes no sense to have like an acro this size, and you put the pump on one side of the tank, and then on the other side you're trying to raise some smaller acros. They won't get any water movement at all. And those are the things that I think that's much more important to have a look at that first, and then we can all start debating about whether it's nicer to have a soft flow or laminar flow or whatever, as long as you can meet these criteria for the animals at their specific location.
Yeah, any talk about flow, I always go back to Greg Scheimer's tank, and a lot of people don't know that name. And Greg was a true reef keeping pioneer that we lost way too soon, quite a few years ago. And he had a 10-foot long tank back in the day, and it had massive corals in it. He had all fixed return lines, and he just had tremendous flow within the tank. Sea swirls, I love my sea swirls. He didn't want anything to do with any kind of randomness or anything. He just had tremendous flow and currents that would collide and create all these eddies. And he had acros 3 feet in diameter, and we're talking about in the mid 90s. So you're just talking about like this was, where the pumps have gotten to, and now we can vary the flow and pulse it and change it. Those are all great things. But Greg's tank, which was massive, especially for the time. And he just had tremendous flow within the system, and it met the needs of any coral that we're doing today.
Yeah, I mean I was just reading a study that was saying, coral reefs, the coral blocks 90% of the flow coming on shore. That's what it does. So it's going to do that in your tank. And there's a million ways to skin flow. It all just depends on what your philosophy is and what your tank setup is, and what your growth is like and what you're willing to do. So, there's no catch-all. I can't find any catch-all answer for everybody. It depends what you're doing.
Don,
so what kind of, I have a question, is that what kind of flow does Euphyllia receive in the ocean? Because just like Alex mentioned earlier, that hammer, frog spawn, torch, they cannot tolerate a very high flow. So what exactly do they get in the ocean?
Well, whenever I see them diving, like the times I still saw them, not on the recent ones in the Caribbean, but in the Red Sea and all those areas where you see them, I would say it's more areas when they definitely have more of an indirect flow. So it's not,
okay.
They're never like in a trench where the water is just rushing through, when the ocean currents are coming in. They're not in these corners where basically the rocks are polished off any life because the flow rate is too high. But they're rather, in those flow shade areas.
Shielded area?
Where they get those vortices and all these stuff that is more of an indirect. And you'll see them moving around. But if you put them in the tank, like I placed some of mine wrong in the first time, or adjusted the pumps wrong. I mean, there's many different errors in that tank. But if you hit them directly, they'll just, all the polyps will go on one side, and then you'll see that the skin is literally just peeling off that skeleton. And I mean, that's obviously too much. Whereas when
that's why the mixed reef is so hard.
Yeah.
Placement is everything. Well, placement and flow is everything. I mean, placement can equal flow, really.
Yeah.
Hey, let's back up a little bit. I kind of jumped the gun here a little bit, I think, and let's kind of like get into why flow is so important. So we kind of answered that question in terms of that top 10 list, that odd question, as Rich called it, or whatever adjective you used, Rich. The awesome question. So we all talked about why is it so important, but what are the reasons? What is the role of flow in an aquarium? I think a lot of us understand that certainly one major benefit is that it brings corals nutrients and food. But, aside from that, what are some other reasons why we should really be so, thinking so much more about flow in a reef tank to try to achieve that success?
Hey, with three of us, would you name the person? We're all being polite to each other and not talking. So when you make a question, start us off with whoever you want to talk.
Oh, should I? So you're saying I should make specifically ask the question to one of the panelists?
Yeah, because we're all like going, I like everybody. I want them to have a chance. So we're all like,
I hope Rich goes first.
Rich, you're going first on this one.
I think we need a biologist for that question to answer that. Honestly.
What was the question?
Yes.
Why? Specifically, why is flow important?
Flow, because corals are sessile. They don't move. They stay in one spot, and everything they get needs to be brought to them, and everything they produce needs to be taken away from them. So if you were cemented on the side of a hill by your feet, and you had your lungs on your hands outside and inside out, you'd be waiting for the wind to blow enough oxygen against your alveoli and carry it away from you. You'd be hoping that food would be blown close enough to you to be able to catch it in your mouth, and all your waste would be blown away as well. Otherwise, it would smother you. So that's kind of what a coral is like. Everything's got to be the water and the flow brings everything the coral needs and takes everything bad away, pretty much.
Wow. I was going to use the exact same analogy with the hands as but I guess I can't do that now. I think the other major thing here
Rich gets credit for that. Yeah.
Yeah. He must have seen my notes. But anyway,
your back tattoo.
Yeah. I think with the detritus, I think some of us don't give two hoots about detritus and others are much more meticulous about it. It's getting that flow to get that detritus out of the system. So it's an indirect benefit to the corals. If you're stirring it up, they will consume some of that detritus, but also we want our filtration to remove all of that out of the system. Some people aren't too concerned about detritus, but some of these people are also the same people that have major issues with their tanks every few years. And again, detritus alone probably isn't the cause, but it's one of those cumulative things where 3 different variables that don't really matter too much, but when they come together cause the problems of tissue loss or something else within the system. So I think the flow, being able to storm the tank, as I call it, being able to turn up the flow beyond what your normal daily flow is, goes a long way for the coral health to get everything blown out of the deep into skeletons and deep inside the live rock.
Is everybody? I didn't.
I was just going to say. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, I just meant when you asked the question.
I feel like I'm gonna be picking on everybody. It was like I was about to ask a question. Does everybody agree with this?
No, not for everything. Just when you start a new question, throw it to somebody.
Right, I'm learning new things every show.
Oh, I don't know. It might not work. I'm just some guy.
He's just a guy.
I think you host your own show.
My show sucks. What do you mean? Come on. I don't care about detritus so much in system. I care about where it is. If the detritus is in your corals, it's bad. If detritus is settling in your overflows or settling in your sump, I don't care so much. I think most of this, all of us are going to agree with tiny little differences like that. If the detritus is and the mulm is in your coral, they're going to have a bad time eventually.
Yeah, in the long run, I think you mentioned Rich. You mentioned the direct effect, so what flow does for the coral itself, and Joe mentioned that detritus issue, and yeah, it's definitely not a immediately vital reason to get the detritus out of the tank, but I mean everybody who's taken down a tank after, I don't know, 5-10 years knows how much detritus is accumulating if you don't maintain that properly, and that will lead to this old tank syndrome very often. Or you'll just be, adding chemicals to, like that stuff here, to maintain the whole system and get the water quality right again. And you could make your life easier if you just have enough flow to take it out in the first place. Same with dirt. Some people don't care about whether it's under the bed, but if it's in the kitchen, then they start, cleaning the rooms.
I'm not staying at Alex's house anymore.
No, we never clean the kitchen as well.
It's a shoes only on the counter kitchen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that begs the question in terms of bare bottom versus sand bed. Obviously, bare bottom would probably be easier to maintain in terms of the detritus. And if you have a large tank with a large sand bed, I know I see Rich has got a pretty deep looking sand bed, I think, and not so deep. And Joe, I'm assuming that's a sand bed behind you. How do you guys deal with detritus in the sand beds? Are you just periodically siphoning to keep that stuff out? I mean, how much can flow help detritus in a sand bed?
I'll jump in. So my tank, one Reef Keep back in the day, back in when I was a youngster, the rule was never touch your sand bed. Like, don't touch it, just leave it. And it depends, all this is, there's no absolutes and anywhere, but if you have a large fish population, then that sand bed is going to be limited as to its carrying capacity and what it can do. So with my tank here, and this is going back to Marcus in Finland, where he made this wonderful pole with a disc on it, and he just would stomp the substrate and get everything uplifted into the current so that either the corals will eat it or the filters will move it out. So this tank here, because I'll stomp this sand once or twice a week after we close, get everything suspended. Some stuff, of course, is going to settle back out, but I can crank the pumps up but I think it's really important just to keep that sand bed stirred up again, because I have a pretty big fish load and I feed heavily. If you have a tiny fish load and you don't feed that much, then your sand bed, of course, is going to stay cleaner much longer. It may not need much attention at all.
Yeah,
I don't touch. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the same thing for a reef tank. Many people say they're trying to create this ocean in their little glass box, and that's what I very often have a problem with, because the infrastructure in the ocean is just significantly different from the infrastructure you can offer in your reef tank. So if the ocean has some detritus settling at 6 feet under, the ocean won't care. That takes a very long time for the system to fail. But in your reef tank, you will run into an issue eventually, because the water is just not being replenished in the same way it's been done in the ocean. And apart from the points of turbidity or visibility in larger reef tanks, like nobody wants to go to a public aquarium where you can only look like 2 feet inside and then everything else is just a blur because of all that shit flowing around. So there's some other reasons for that too, which is not directly coral health or reef tank health. But one more thing to mention on the flow thing: if it's not only corals, but if you have larger fish in a larger tank, you also can have areas where you get stratification in your tanks. And we've seen that at many public aquariums where the water is just not being mixed at all. And then they measure oxygen levels in some areas, and in some other areas, the oxygen levels are just by far too low for a shark or any other animal to just stay in it. So that's another benefit of moving the water around in the tank.
I think there's a difference between detritus and mollen. I think detritus very quickly breaks down into mollen, and mollen is pretty much inert. So I don't care so much about detritus, about mollen. I have a 180-gallon sump, which is bigger than the display behind me. And the reason I did that, originally it was going to be a frag tank, but it's in the crawl space, and very quickly I realized I don't want any part of that magic. But it was also a settling area, like the abyssal plain in the ocean. So all the mollen and detritus gets stirred up in the tank. The fish and the other animals in the tank go through the sand. It used to be bare bottom, by the way. I added sand because I like the life in the sand, and tilefish digging through sand is super awesome.
I thought it's just molten in the tank, no sand.
No, that's in the sump. The sump probably right now has probably 3 inches of molten in it. The tank's 24 years old, so about 15 years ago it was like that, and I removed the molten, and it made no difference in water quality at all. So I just decided, who cares? Again, it's a kind of thing of, if it's not on the corals, I don't care. Now in the lab tanks, which are all connected to the same system, the turnover through the sump is very slow. And so every 6 months or so, I'll get a polishing filter, and I'll use my hand and storm up the sand in there. It'll cloud up, and then the depleted filter will get filled, and I'll rinse it and put it back in. And I'll do that 3 or 4 times to kind of keep up on it there, because in those tanks, it's much closer in proximity with the corals. Although one of the tanks, I probably haven't done that in 3 years, and everything's fine. So I think all the things we're talking about, there are ways to deal with them. The tank behind me, there's flow everywhere because there's 75 pumps in there, and there's no dead areas that, you know, there's not 75, but there's like 12 pumps. And they're all facing different directions, and they all do different things. So there's no dead spot in the tank. So I think if you have a philosophy about what's going on, and it's wide enough at the base, you can deal with all the issues everybody's talking about. That might not, you know, that's not going to work necessarily on a 50-gallon tank with a canister filter. You're going to run that differently. I have a thing about rules. You know, this is what's going to happen, and I think it's different in every tank and how your approach is. So, you know, I don't care about mulm.
Rich, do you ever blow the rocks off in your tank with a power head or turkey baster to kind of get the detritus, even if those 12 pumps can't get everything? Do you?
Yeah, there's a lot of I do, and I don't do it enough as I think I should. But then again, I'm not seeing a problem, so I don't know what the right answer is. Every time I do, I go, oh, this is probably a really good idea. I should do this more. And then I go, oh, look, it's the wall. And I don't do it again for a long time. I think it's you know, that stuff does get into the nooks and crannies. But at this point in the tank, there's nothing on the rock anymore. Everything on the rock is, you know, dead coral bases that have died because it's grown up and above the rock. So I don't really care so much.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it on one of my tanks, one of my display tanks. I did it pretty religiously every week. But my current Peninsula tank, I don't do it at all. Then I got a smaller 75-gallon shallow reef tank that I've got a little cyano that's popped up in certain spots of the rock, and it's detritus that's kind of settled on those spots, and then, you know, I do have to blow that every now and then. Joe, I mean, do you do that with the big tank behind you there? Is that necessary, or?
Yeah, and actually, that's the Carlson surge device that's dumping behind me right now. So you'll see a little bit of air from the initial dump. It's a 300-gallon vessel that fills up in about 18 minutes, and it'll dump 300 gallons in about 40 seconds. So it's got a lot. It's an input of a lot of random energy. Ever since adding that Abyzz pump on the other side, which we'll be taking a look at later, it doesn't have the reach that it used to. Cycle just ended, and but it creates a lot of turbulent flow. But like you just said about the cyano popping up, oftentimes there is going to be that layer of detritus underneath it that's going to be fueling it directly, is how I would describe it. So when I'm in the tank, when I'm diving in there, I'll definitely be fanning other areas. I can change the flow rates on the Abyzz. And then I also have a Hydro Wizard, the large Hydro Wizard in the back. I can change the frequency on that and get things pulsing quite rapidly between the two pumps. And that really you can just see the detritus getting shaken out of the rockwork and then suspended. So,
Dong, is that something that you do, Dong? Do you ever take a power head, blow the rocks off, or the frag racks and whatnot in your systems? You just let it ride?
I used to do that, but that's many years ago. Right now, I have these washing machines in every tank. I don't have to do that anymore. I actually wondering the 12 pumps in Richard's tank. What are they?
There are a bunch of different. There's a wave in the back top corner over here. There's a big new kind of puck style J-bow in the top over here going along the back. On the back two corners, there are two gyres facing each other that go along the wall. There's a gyre up here facing forward. There's two gyres on the sides along the top. There's a gyre back here facing forward. There's a puck style pump on the back there facing forward. Then there's a closed loop and a return with a bunch of lock line going to sea swirls that go to different areas. And,
so that they're not linked together, right? Because they're different brands.
They're not linked together, but they're kind of they're put in a way that either they're working together or they're working. They're not random. They're working with some thought behind them. You know, you take, you know, this tank. I'm an idiot, and this tank's been up for 24 years. So I take all the conversations we've had over the years, and I go, well, wait, if there's supposed to be, if people say that no flow along the back wall can lead to a problem, well, it's really easy to get flow along the back wall.
Just put it on.
You know, and now it's even easier, you know. And so if I'm seeing areas where I think it needs more flow, I'm adding more. But that's this tank, right? This tank is complicated, is ghostly complicated. You know, there's a lot of aquascape and coral in it, so I need, and because the tank's designed as a box, you know, it's not designed with clear lanes of flow in it like my new tank will be designed. So I've got to get flow where it needs to be, however it needs to get there.
Yeah, understandable. That's why I dropped the aquascape in this tank by at least about 3 to 4 inch down. So that way I have, that helps. So that's a lot of flow that going through the top. Yeah, so I can put really strong flow on the top so that I don't have to use my turkey baster all the time.
Yeah, you want to get flow moving. You want to get the mass of the water moving as much as you can. Then you want to get it moved a different direction if you can. Then you want them to intersect, then move around so they kind of baste for you. And that's what I think. And you want to do that with some intention. I really like what Joe said about injecting energy. And I think that's what we mean by random flow is sometimes we inject energy in a different direction. Not that the pump ramps up and down randomly. That's not what we're looking for.
That's not the same
wrong
thing,
idea of random. And if you've got space for a surge, that's great. Or if you've got space for, you know, sometimes my pumps, some of the pumps on top act like a surge. They come on for 30 seconds and then they stop. But and I have it changed all throughout the day. So
can we get into the specifics of the different types of flows? So you've got, you know, laminar flow, you've got the surge that's been mentioned, the gyre flow, and then there's the turbulent flow. Alex, I mean, maybe you could help answer this question in terms of like what kind of flow do you guys try to focus on? Do you try to, in your products, do you really try to, you know, take into account each one of those types of flow, or at least trying to give hobbyists the option to incorporate those different types of flow in your pumps?
Yeah, first I would like to elaborate a little bit on this laminar flow thing. So if someone would really create laminar flow in the tank, that would mean that every molecule of all the water would move in the same direction at exactly the same speed. And you you will not have that. You know, there's something you can get close to that depending on what type of pump you're using, and that's basically what this the rectifiers are for. So as long as you have something turning, it will make the water spin by physics. So you have to get that spin out again. So if the rectifier in front of the pump is doing the correct thing and is matching the impeller, then you will get an almost laminar flow. So that means an even spread of speed all over the opening of the pump. And it doesn't matter whether it's a gyre pump or not, you know, or it's a rotating pump with a normal impeller wheel. They all try to move water, and they just have to make sure that the water is coming out at the same speed at every square inch of the surface area they offer. So that would give you a laminar flow, but that ends as soon as it's in the tank or hitting something or turning around in the tank. You know, if in Dong's tank, you have flow on the top, and that can be laminar. You know, you have 2 or 3 pumps, and you basically move all of the water surface, but the water has to go back to the pump at some point. So it will spread where it can move easily on the sides of the tank. It'll move faster, and through the inside of your reef, it'll just go, you know, meander its way through until it reaches the pump. So that's where you can't have laminar flow at that point. And I wouldn't focus too much on all these theories, if I'd be setting up a reef tank, I would make sure, and that's my main principle, wherever we go and do, work on those large systems on hobbyist tanks, I always tell people what Rich also mentioned earlier: try to get the whole column of water moving somehow. Don't point randomly, because you'll be ending up installing many pumps and not having a massive effect in the tank. And you'll also, I mean, on a small tank, it doesn't really matter whether you have 50 watts or 100 watts. But if you're talking about, like a 1,000-gallon or 2,000-gallon tanks, then it starts mattering whether you're spending, $500 or $1,000 in energy for reaching the same goal. And so if you place your pump smart and you have 1 or 2 or 3 pumps moving the main water column, have a look at the tank, and then if you see there's a problem, then change it to eliminate that problem, or maybe add 1 pump if it doesn't work in another way. So what we offer, or what our products can do, is that all the products can do a random flow, for example, which I'm a big fan of, but a random flow alone on 1 pump is just not enough, because the flow never changes direction, it only changes intensity. So in injecting this additional energy in the tank, as Joe is saying, that you can reach that if you have multiple pumps, let's say at least 2, because then they can counteract each other and fight each other in that reef tank if you place them correctly. And then you'll create, over the time span of a day, many different vortices in every corner of the tank. And that's what you need. You don't need to hammer every square inch of the tank at every minute of the day with a massive flow, but you need to make sure that every now and then every corner gets moved in the proper way. And on top of the random things, you can then add like boost, where, let's say, every hour, every 2 hours, you let the pump go off to 100% or 80% or whatever your settings are running at. So with that programming, I think you can pretty well establish some chaotic flow in the tank, and then adding on top of that like a storm surge or something, and that does help, in my opinion. But and then again, we work a lot in public aquariums. You don't want to have a storm surge when the visitor times are open, because because then the people won't be able to see anything. That's, as Joe says, if you clean your tank, and if you're getting visitors, you better clean your tank the day before, because if you do that on that day, your water will look shitty, and nobody wants that.
So on the hobby side, I frequently get asked by customers is, what is the smallest pump can move the large amount of water? Because it's a hobby, and then the tank size is limited, and people do not want to see pumps. They want them to be as small as possible, but they still want a huge amount of water flow. Is it doable? Is it physically achievable with a tiny little pump, but huge amount of output?
Well, I mean, technically, there's of course different laws of physics that apply, and you can't get around those, at least not for now. We're not in Star Trek, so there's like efficiency above 100% always sounds a bit sketchy. So to move a certain amount of water, you need a certain amount of energy, and that then it's just the question: how fast do you want to accelerate it? Like, the faster you want to accelerate,
you mean the speed? The speed?
Yeah, right. Because the faster the motor accelerates, the faster the water accelerates, of course. So if you want to be able to have a very strong push really fast, you just need a lot of energy, because you won't be able to turn that impeller wheel very fast if you don't have torque. So there's some limitations to that. I don't want to, bash everyone or anyone on the market, but there's certainly a different way companies or manufacturers look at what their products do. Let's just, keep it like that. They give different numbers or certain numbers in what their products do. And I can only recommend not to only trust those numbers, but try out many different products. If you have friends that have new type of pump or whatever, compare those pumps. Put your hands in front of it. Just get a feeling for what you think 3,000 gallons an hour should feel like. And then if you have another pump that tells you just 3,000 and it feels twice as strong, there might be a little difference in between the pumps. What you cannot do is create a pump that is this small that moves tons of water very fast. Like, there's a limit. And the smaller the pump is in general, the less efficient you can move the water around, because the pump has
propeller?
to... Yes, the propeller has to drain the water from somewhere. So the water is moving to the impeller or to the prop, and then the prop has to accelerate it, and then you still have to rectify it. If you don't rectify it, if there's just a cage in front, basically the water as it comes out will just still spin, and it will open up like this, which is great for a small reef tank, because there you don't want to have a jet that stays together as a like a fire engine hose.
Fire hose.
You want to move water evenly across the surface. But that pump, for example, on a distance of, let's say, 6 feet, there won't be much coming on the other side, because it just can't point that flow in that direction. So the water movement will stop, and then the returning water from the other side will just break that water movement, and the other side will just be stalled or not moving. So that you need a certain size to generate a certain feature. And if you look, for example, our smallest pump, which is still big for a reef hobbyist, it's probably like, 10 inches long, I would say. And that's 10 inches long because it's got a almost 3-inch long rectifier, because it's built to move water 30 feet away. And you can't do that. If you take the rectifier out and you cut off the first 3 inches of the pump, it gets a lot smaller. You can use it in a smaller tank, but the beam will open up like this. So it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. Same with closed loop pumps. Many people we haven't mentioned that yet.
So I was just yep.
Yeah, that's a... Sorry, Joe.
No,
it just came to my mind. That's also a very
good.
good strategy to do that, but it's just not as efficient. But if you don't want to see pumps at all, that's the best way to do it. But you're very limited in changing things, which I don't like. So that's why, for example, in my reef tank, I only have 2 flow pumps, and they're both in the same corner. Nobody would do that in general. My tank is... and I'm not at the office right now, so my tank's in the office. That's 10 feet long by 3 feet front to back, and then 65 centimeters high, so just 2.5 feet maybe. So it's quite a long tank. And in the far right corner, there's 2 pumps. And one is blowing to the front, one is blowing just straight across the rear wall, basically. And these 2 pumps are running at random. So you'll always have moments when the pump blowing on the rear wall is going, let's say, 80% or 60%, and the other pump is very low, and then the water will spin this way, and then another moment the water will spin that way. And of course you need to... the timing is also crucial. So if you set your random mode or your programming, let's say if Rich with the 17 pumps, they're all pulsing in seconds or 2 seconds on that tank size, you will still have the same. It will all be mushy, and it will always look the same, because there will be no flow establishing that varies from another flow that's establishing. So you need to give the tank the time that it needs to actually move that water mass around, unless you're creating a standing wave. So for Joe's tank, for example, Joe can create a wave, and then you have that resonance frequency going on in the tank, and that gives a very nice motion. Which is problematic in some home tanks. But if Joe would pulse the pump in a random mode per second, or even every 5 seconds, you wouldn't see a significant change in the whole system, because the water column has a momentum, and you cannot change 20 tons, oh no, it's 80 tons actually in your tank,
Yeah.
right? 80 cubic meters.
Yeah.
So 80 metric tons of water, you can't just turn them around
That's
in
true.
like 5 seconds.
Yes.
So the timing has to match your tank size. So I would say if you have like a 500-gallon tank like I do, you will need probably with every flow change you're introducing, you'll probably need 5 minutes to see the actual effect and how it has changed. And then you want to do a next random mode, then you need those 5 minutes again for the change to be visible. And that's what people should watch as well.
So is that closed loop will be better to do that or no?
I used to be a big fan of closed loop, just 5 cents from my side, but I'm not anymore because it's less efficient. If you have a large tank, you need significantly more pump power. You have the problem, like maintenance is a big thing. If the flow pump breaks, is dirty, whatever, needs to be maintained, you take it out, you clean it, you put it back in. If your plumbing is done after 5 or 6 years, you need a large basin or a large brute force barrel, and then put all those acids or whatever you use for cleaning in, and then you need to scrub the inside of the plumbing. Ideally, you after 5 or 10 years, you just toss it away and replumb the whole thing. And that's just too much maintenance, in my opinion. But there's, if for a smaller system, if you don't want to see anything, and let's say if you want to have a nice bare bottom tank and very open, there's some famous aquascapes, like the one tank in Switzerland where they have this very open reef structure and you have no sand, and it's very clean install, almost pharmaceutical clean. You don't want to see pumps in that, and those outlets for closed loop, you can easily hide somewhere, even in parts of the feed for your reef structure. So yeah, if you want that, then closed loop is your thing, but be aware that needs more maintenance and it needs more energy for sure.
Joe, you were going to say something?
Just that 80 metric tons sounds so much sexier than 20,000 gallons. So I thank you for that,
right?
Alex.
I know.
And yeah, I think the closed loop, that again, going back in time, because I've been doing this for 41 years now, the closed loops were awesome. And then when the magnetically coupled pumps that came out that would go onto your glass tanks came out, closed loops kind of went out of favor. But now that there's these great energy efficient pumps that you can pulse and change the flow rate, I think there's definitely a place for closed loops for people who don't want to have all these magnetically coupled pumps on their tanks. I think there's definitely a place for that. But just even going back a little bit more is just, we're talking about the flow, but it's the design of the rockwork initially that will enable any of the flow that we're talking about. So I've got a tank that's 30 feet long, Alex, and for other people who use that silly system based on 10, it's about 10 meters long, but there's major grooves in this rockwork that have 2-inch eductors. So I have constant flow just crushing through each one of these channels. And that was inspired by some aerial photos of looking at some reefs where you just saw like where the tidal grooves were cut through these reef sections. So there's 3 or 4 major grooves on a diagonal, and the diagonal is important. So it's not a straight shot. You don't see it, but it's there. And there's a huge amount of energy and flow going down the channels of this tank constantly, mixed in with the variable flow. So it all starts with the rock work and providing ample space instead of just a wall. The rock work in this tank doesn't go to the back wall to allow flow around the entire structure as well. So backing into another topic of flow is what rock work are you doing first, and how are you planning on moving the water among that rock work?
Yeah, and then how is that going to change over time when the coral grows? And what's your
100%. Yeah, Alex, the Abyzz pump that we will see later, Alex, don't worry. When Alex generously donated this pump, So when we first fired it up, the corals were a lot smaller, and we hit about 35% on this pump. And it was going to blow my reef apart. We're on the radio talking to each other, like, turn it down. And I'm now running at 72% because of what was just discussed about the corals are growing. And what's nice is oversizing something like that. I don't really have to worry too much about. I'm just turning the volume up. Up to 11, as they used to say in some movies. But I can just increase the flow and meet the demands. And then eventually, though, I do have to take a coral down that's over a meter in diameter. See, Alex, you got me talking now. And then break that down because the flow is just it's just not doing it.
Yeah, every pump is different as well. There's a gyre pump, there's a power head, there's all the different prop pumps, there's the puck pumps, there's closed loops, there's using a DC return pump as its own pump. They all have different flow. They all do slightly different things or majorly different things. So you really need to think about what you need for each application of that pump. That's why there's all those different kinds of pumps. Now, in the new tank that I'm building, it's just going to have 2 A200s in it, and that's it. And I think that will probably last for a long time, flow-wise. And to go with what Joe was saying, going with the 200s, because I'm not going to run that. I would be surprised if I'm running them at 40% to start. But that gives me a ton of headroom over time. And also the tank is going to be set up based on having open areas for the fire hose to actually go the length of the tank. So
I can still, before I have to jump in.
Yeah, please.
I think you need to get one first before you take your old tank down.
Yeah.
And try it out in the tank. Just put a guard grid on top.
Absolutely.
To see the difference. And I'll send you both to compare. Just because I'm still not a fan of that solution, as we discussed, in private. But just to give you that idea of, rather than going with the A200s, I would still prefer the AFCs. But you should. That comes down exactly to what I said. Don't trust anyone in what they say on the spec sheet. Like, have a look for yourself and see how much water is moving and how the flow is coming out of those pumps and those outlets. And then make your decision. And if you're lucky enough to have a friend that does stuff like that, I can highly recommend making good use of that.
Okay. I saw Steve Wiest's tank recently, and Steve did something that I dreamt about like 20 years ago, but where do I have money in R&D to mock up a full-size tank and pumps to play and see what they do? And so he's got 2 big return pumps. It's a peninsula tank, and on each side they're just going out across the top, and they're in their own boxes. And at the bottom of those boxes, built into the tank with the weir in between them in its own box, are big openings. So they're pushing water across the top, but we're actually harnessing the sucking of the water the other direction at the bottom. And the flow he got in there is very impressive. And his pumps are not nearly as good as the 200s. If I can play with both of them, that'll absolutely make a difference. And there might be an argument to put a cannon in a different place in the tank to get a different kind of flow, because the cannon will do a very different style of flow than the A200 will. Yeah. And part of me is, and people are going to stab me, part of me is very excited about having a very simple tank after 24 years of having an insane tank. But yeah, the ability to try the different pumps would be an amazing thing to do.
So, Rich, what you described sounds like those kind of wave maker towel from Unique Coral, right? Because they have a opening from the top and blasting water from the top, but then there is a gauge or whatever sucking water from the bottom.
Yep.
So yeah, Unique Coral sells something like that.
Oh yeah, there's a Panther A device.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and that's very cool. That takes up space. So my tank, basically, it's a peninsula tank that's going to be available from one side and the front. And I think that's a really good way to do it. And that's essentially kind of how Alex has his pumps set up in that style as well. And if the tank is big enough and you are, disciplined enough to leave the space along all of the sides, you can get a lot of flow going on. But if you're like most people, once you start setting up your tank, it just becomes a box full of coral.
Exactly. Very difficult to find space.
That's
every corner. The light ridges is all have coral in it.
Oh, this tank is stupid. What I'll do with Alex's pumps, I'll test them in another body of water so I can see what they're doing, and then I'll figure out if there's a place I can try them in here. And as the new tank is coming, I'll start moving coral out, so I'll be able to test even a little bit more. But it's called the Panta Surge, I think, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, a giant fiberglass tank. I might be interested in something like that. But everyone's got to make the decision. What do you want to see and what do you want to not see? Some people love the.
Did you say Nazi?
I did. But
come on.
No soup for you.
Man.
I spelled it differently. Jeez,
I'm very
Watch what you're saying
sensitive.
there, Rich.
No tank for you. 1 year.
Exactly. Exact change, only.
There's the arms that like the Orca, and there's another one, Ocean Sea Wave, I guess, and they move an actual pump inside the tank around, and that's cool if you want to see that, or if not seeing it matters, or it doesn't matter to you if it's being seen or if you're in a big trough or whatever. That's fine. I'm not.
Farm.
I don't want. I don't want to see that. Now I got all those pumps in the tank, but the only ones you can really see are the gyres up in the corners, and you can't really see those. And then you can see where the squeeze swirls are on the top. I don't want to look at pumps anymore. That's not an exciting thing for me. So this idea of putting them all on one side and letting them power through seems pretty sexy to me.
There was that you mentioned peninsula tank. There was just a question about how would you do flow in a peninsula tank. I just want to comment on that question really quick, because I would do it exactly in the way that we discussed. Like put at least two pumps in one corner or one side of the tank and have them interact with each other so that they are basically fighting each other, and then use a random flow profile or wave, depending on what you like. But that way you get flow all the way to the end of the tank. Just make sure that corals don't touch the side walls, which is what I'm doing in my tank as well. My first tank was basically two walls coming in from the side, and you'll always have stress getting flow within that wall or behind that wall. That's why my tank that I have now is basically set up with 3 large pieces of reef that are sitting, diagonally in the tank, and the corals don't touch the rear wall, they don't touch the sides, and the water can move around those 3 pillars, I would call them. And also the theming or the rock work only goes up to, it's not even half of the tank's height to have that space of corals to grow for the corals. And once the corals are kicking in with their growing, you won't be able to see these, even if they're big, the 2 large pumps, you won't be able to see them from the front of the tank, because they'll just be hidden by corals.
Yeah, I'm showing my my 225 gallon Peninsula tank, and you can't see the pumps because the live webcam is kind of zoomed in where you can't see these pumps. But I've got, sorry about this, Alex, I've got 4 MP40s on the right side, which is the end of the tank, and then, well, I'm sorry, 2 MP40s and 2 MP60s, and on the left side, the viewing glass panel on the left side, I've got 2 MP40s, and when you're looking at it in person, it can be a bit of an eyesore in terms of seeing those pumps at the end of the tank in terms of that viewing panel. But that's kind of like the conundrum that you've got with the Peninsula tank, is that sure, you could add a lot of pumps to the Peninsula tank to get that sufficient flow, but they can be potentially like an eyesore. Whereas Rich, you mentioned Steve Weiss tank, you don't see anything, and so he's kind of got it figured out.
Well, and I'm doing exactly that. I'm building in pump chambers so you can't see the pumps. You get a bunch of extra yumminess out of that. If you're going to run a polishing filter, you just drop it in that chamber. Really easy to service the pumps. And if if I was going to do it and money was free, I would do 4 pumps on that.
We mentioned something else that you're getting for free.
Yeah, all right. That tank, someone's making that tank for free. It's awesome. I was going to pay for it, but I'll take it for free.
Yeah.
Neptunium cube is what it's called. On that one end, on the peninsula end, where the weir is, I would have 4 pumps, 2 at the top and 2 mid-bottom kind of ish.
That's what I got.
And that would just on the one side though.
Yeah.
And that would you'd be able to control. You'd be able to spin it top to bottom, left to right, bottom to top, right to left. You'd be able to have a gyre, a top and bottom gyre interacting all the way down, 2 top gyres. You could really manipulate the water everywhere, probably as much as you needed to. Looking at Weiss tank, the 2 pumps with the screens for the intakes at the bottom really seems to have the water motion working well enough. But if I were playing with things and had a bigger budget, I would have 4 pumps because that would give you just infinite flexibility, I think, in a peninsula. And I think now I'm thinking all tanks, you should just be kind of peninsula style. You can hide all the pumps on one side and get them going enough. And, but it all depends. Some people don't care about the look of pumps. Some people, aren't even thinking about that yet. There's a million ways to do this. And it's your attitude's going to change over time. I did a talk last year or this year at Reef Retreat about flow. And the process of going through that made me think different things. And then talking to Alex and seeing a whole bunch of things in Europe made me think different aspects of that became more important to me. And then seeing Steve's tank went, oh, this is what I want to try this time. So there's a million ways to do it. It's about what you like and what you can afford. And, now the pumps we have are just insane. I mean, it's an incredible time to be a reef keeper. You want to hide stuff and you do a peninsula style on the side. Those puck pumps, like the Nero or the J-Bow now has a version of them. They kind of disappear if you've got them all on one side on a black background. They just kind of vanish. And you can not light that side and you can have all, you can do whatever you want. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in terms of flow now. I'm sold on the Abyzz pumps, das Flow machine. Because they, I saw what they're really for. You get a lot of flow for very little footprint and very little wattage. That's awesome. And, there are definitely applications where they make a lot of sense. On the tank, the scale of mine, I'm thinking that's a great idea. And I don't want to go with the tiny, tiny one. I don't even want to say what name it is because Alex will smack me. But, I want the bigger one.
What is it? Say it.
The A120. I was thinking about going with the A120s first. And then I thought, but you know what? I want more headroom than that if I need more water. Or if eventually I need to use, closed loop style off of it, I can always tee off the A200 more than I can off the 120. It just gives me more room to do stuff. So that's what
actually, I remember from live streams way back from Abyzz. So you said all the Abyzz pump is 12 volt DC?
Yeah. I mean, there's right now there's an A120 that's a return pump with 12 volts. There's an A200 with 12 volts as well, and there's a AFC 150 that's 12 volts, and then there's going to be the AFC and A400 with 36 volts coming up.
So the reason I asked that is that when you have 12 volt pump, that means the current is pretty strong. You need a big ass cable.
That's it, and you can only make the cable, so long. And if people are demanding 30-foot cable, you just can't do that with 12 volts. If it's really 12 volts, there's also a lot of stuff on the market that has a label 12 volts, but it's actually running with anything up to 24 or whatever.
So
yeah.
what's the reason behind 12 volt instead of 24 that everybody use?
Well, a 12 volt is understood and named as a safety extra low voltage. So anything that has 12 volt or less is considered safe for the use in toys for kids, for the use in water. In Germany, actually, and Europe, all over, there's actually a law that within any body of water, meaning a pool, a public bath, you cannot have a pump that is more than 12 volt. And if you have a stronger pump, obviously a public swimming bath needs a big return pump. They have to have at least, I think it's 8 meters of plastic plumbing. They need to have a ground fault protection and all that stuff, and they need to be in a separate room, in a separate chamber. There's a lot of regulations on that, on human safety. But there's also 12 volts is only one aspect of that whole safety thing. Where did the 12 volts come from is also a different aspect. So if you have a very, very cheap power supply that has a very low insulation voltage, and that breaks, you can still get electrocuted from your 12 volt outlet because the power supply just fails. Of course, that never happens. I mean, everybody knows power supplies fail at some point. So get a high quality power supply that has, a high insulation voltage of, let's say, 4,000 volts, and then those things won't happen. So they get this medical stamp. So there's a lot of stuff behind that on how to do the flow, but we just did that because there's some projects in very often in public aquaria where you have touch pool tanks, for example. And as soon as you have touch pool tank in your public aquarium, you will have a liability issue if the first kid that touches a cow nose ray is lying dead on the floor because it's electrocuted. That will get people talking, and that's why people then tend to use something that is very safe. But then also comes the whole grounding topic, but that's a different topic, I think, for now.
Yeah,
there's so much to talk about.
There's a lot of stuff to talk about. I mean, I got a couple of questions. One, Rich, you mentioned rock, rock work in a reef tank, and I mean, there was a lot of opinions about rock when I started in the hobby. I think it was like 2 pounds of rock per gallon of water, and then it kind of morphed into like 1 gallon of rock per gallon of water, and I think maybe now the philosophy is even less. What do the panelists feel like in terms of if you are starting a reef tank? I mean, Rich, what are you going to do with the new tank there? Are you going to be kind of using the rock that you have in that smaller tank into the larger tank? What are your goals with the amount of rock? I mean, another factor is the corals, right? You got to factor in the coral growth, and that's going to come into play at some point in the life of a reef tank. But what does everybody think in terms of the amount of rock that you should have in a display tank in terms of that pounds per gallon formula that we always kind of went by way back when?
I'm not a fan of any of that. I think put enough rock in so you like how it looks. That's and it's going to be plenty. I also have I think it's also if you're worried about not having enough, apartments for your bacteria, put more rock or Genesis blocks, in your sump, or hide those around your tank. I think you'll have plenty of rock in that, plenty of apartment space for bacteria in that case. I'm going to swap this out in the day is the plan.
So
goes back to the tank.
Are you saying, Rich, that it's just up to the individual in terms of what they feel fits the reef tank that they're setting up?
I think so, especially if you season that rock before it goes in, so you're not relying on bacteria building up inside the rock. I think that makes your life a lot easier if you do that. A couple months before you're starting the tank, get your rock and put it in a big, brute and seed it with some rock from somebody else's tank and let that bacteria start going. But I think as long as you have, one piece of live rock in a tank of rock is not going to do it, but enough rock to make escape that's going to support your corals, I think you're fine.
Yeah, I think where I'm more interested in going with that question is in terms of how it relates to flow. So, in terms of maximizing flow, the less rock and coral mass you have, the more flow, I guess, you can get going into that tank. But it depends on the kind of tank that you're starting. Is it going to be a mixed reef? Is it going to be an SPS dominant reef? Does it matter? Do you strive for one of those negative space aquascapes where you're very minimalistic and you just have a lot of open space in that tank? Joe, you've got a huge tank and you rebooted that tank a number of years ago, so I'm assuming there was a lot of open space, but obviously there's been a lot of coral growth over the years. So, I guess that's kind of like what I'm driving at is where does like a reef keeper start in terms of that sort of amount of rock and trying to like get the right amount of flow? I guess it's not an easy equation.
Yeah. I definitely, like Rich said, a personal preference and like trying to, like if you want some height, if you have a tank that's a little bit deeper, doing things like hammer drilling holes in the rock and putting it onto fiberglass rods so that you can get the height easily instead of having to build a bigger base. So you get this pyramidal rock shape to get the height that you want. So achieving the height with less rock, always better. There's all kinds of glues and cement work now. You can really get pretty creative with achieving the look. But, there's no hard and fast rules here, but I would say at most, depending on what you're looking to do, like 1/3 the height of your tank with the rock. Of course, it's just going to fill up with coral really, really fast. Maybe use some Gorgonia. I think the most underappreciated. The Caribbean Gorgonia are awesome for taking up height and giving you a visual without being bulky. So just something simple like that gets you the height that you want, but leaving it open for going back to the flow. So 12,000 watts of light just went off recently in the back behind me. That's why the tank looks a little more bluer right now. Just as an aside. So,
Keith, I'm essentially going to take what's here, take it out, and put it back in the new tank almost exactly like it is.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to shift it around a little bit. So there's basically 3 areas in there, but it looks like one area now, but there's 2 90-pound pieces of rock, and then there's a smaller island in the middle. So I want to get some channels between them, but I'm not going to, I may put a column or 2 up a little bit so I can grow some more things. But other than that, it's this with more space, so it can grow taller of the coral.
Should hobbyists be concerned about turnover rates? And when I'm talking about turnover rates, I guess there's 2 different types of turnover rates. You could have like an in-tank turnover rate in terms of that flow, as well as like the turnover through the sump. Do you guys think about that when designing a reef tank in terms of what you want those turnover rates to be? Is that a thing that people should be concerned about?
I think it's a thing in terms of the turnover rate. You don't have to get all that water through your sump. Like on this system, it would be absurd to get the turnover rate through a sump. So very little percentage-wise. I don't even probably have it figured out, but all of the skimmed water that does go to the sump goes to the all of that goes to the protein skimmer, so that anything that does go into the sump that's skimmed with all the fats and everything else that's in the oils, 100% of my skimmed water goes to the surface. and then you make up the difference within the tank. Back in the day, I remember like 16 times per hour was a number that was thrown around. But as your tanks get bigger, that's a ridiculous number to try and get through a sump.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say nobody does that in that number when it has to go through filtration. I mean, it depends on how heavily your tank is stocked. I mean, if we're talking about an aquaculture facility where you're breeding, I don't know, tilapia or whatever, yeah, the filtration needs to be different, and your turnover rate and the water movement mostly comes from the filtration. But the bigger the tank gets, that's always my guideline, the less turnover rate you need actually through your filtration as a general rule of thumb, because the bigger the tank, the less stocking density you will usually have, unless at some point you introduce, I don't know, like whale sharks or whatever. But from a normal tank, if you step up from a 500 gallon to a 1,000 gallon or 2,000 gallon, there's no reason to keep that exact same turnover rate through your filtration, because you're not getting 4 times or 5 times the amount of fish in there normally. If you do, yeah, I mean, you'll see. I mean, check out your water parameters. If you can't get detritus out anymore because it's going too slow on your overflow, and the detritus is falling down in front of the overflow rather than being taken out, then your turnover rate is too low, which I had in the beginning. I was going very, very low, and I saw exactly that happening. I have a very long overflow, so it's almost 3 feet, and you could see particles that would just go to the overflow, and then just before the overflow, they would fall down. So you need to have a certain drag through that comb to then actually take these, the detritus or whatever is out. If you don't want to have that swimming around in your water column, and the rest is biology. So if that's not enough, if your nitrate and phosphates go up like crazy and your skimmer is doing nothing, it could be because it's just not getting enough material out of the tank. But other than that, I would say inside the tank, so much more important than filtration. 100%.
And I would say, if your
I'm
main
just going to move my stuff over to the east side of the tank. You kind of have a larger tank when you can say east and west side. Did I just say that out loud? I did. Let's see. Oh, look what's in the corner there, Alex.
Oh.
I still haven't hidden it yet.
And you still don't have the original protection cage around it.
I still don't have the screen on it. But I'm going to run up and put a pound of mysis shrimp onto it. And so you guys can see the flow. All right. So talks amongst yourselves. You'll see it when it happens.
Point the camera up a little bit.
You want it up a little bit? Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to, without my glasses on, it's hard for me to.
That's good. A little bit to your right.
That way?
Or your left.
Be left, yeah. There you go.
Excuse me.
Right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, waiting for that.
Talks among yourselves.
Okay. I was going to say that,
that fish is huge.
Yeah, the tank is amazing.
Yeah.
The amount of turnover through your sump, kind of depends on what equipment you've got in there. If you've got more flow than your skimmer or your mechanical filtration can process, what's the point?
But it's just a very expensive way of storing water. Exactly.
Yeah, and in the tank, I think you're always going to want more flow. I think there's just never enough. Flow is more important than water, especially in a peninsula.
All right, Joe, we've expanded Joe's screen here so we can see
I'm honored.
The dump of mysis shrimp.
Yeah, look at that. See, and I think Joe's tank recovered from the breakdown and reset up because of this cannon. This thing moves so much water. The mass of water in that tank is crazy. Oh, there's the fish. Go, Joe.
Oh my
boy.
goodness.
Look at that.
Can you
wow.
guys still
Wow.
hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we can
so-
see the mysis.
Yeah, so I put a 1 pound block of mysis on the screen intake. And then as
Wow.
you can see,
Jeez.
I have to like keep my
So
fish
pretty.
away because they come and steal it off the.
It's like a
So
snowstorm
as
in
it's
there.
defrosting, that's what's shooting across. And the Soho tanks here are about 23 years old, and they don't care what I do to them. They just know where the food is. So it'll keep shooting across, and then we'll maybe look down to the other side. Pump is running at 72% right now and using about 820 watts on average, I think.
Wow.
So just crazy that 100,000 gallons per hour roughly is going through this pump right now using less wattage than your 1,000-watt heater on your tank.
And the water is going along the front wall. It's hitting the side wall, curling around, going along the back wall to be sucked into the pump again on the other side. So that pump is just really moving the mass of the water.
That's a happy tank.
Yeah.
So Joe, how many fish do you have?
Not enough. I do want to get more anthias and all smaller fishes is my goal still to get some more anthias and chromis and wrasses and these are as big a fish as I've got right now, and so it's a lot of the food ends up on the far side of the tank too. So I'm gonna swing over there now that you saw the flow. But yes, as Rich said, the flow from that pump is instrumental on the success of this tank. I rebooted this tank. It's 5 years ago, this past July, and everything that you see basically went in as frags about 4 years ago.
That's
It's
amazing.
absolutely crazy.
And I pruned back a lot of stuff already. So bringing it back around to our discussion of flow, the big acros, the big green acros up top there. I feel like a weatherman right now. I'm looking at the screen, and here you can see the front coming through the flow, and it's
High pressure system.
So, and but it's hard to see through this view, but like the morphology on those acros are plating out because of the constant flow. So this whole area is going to get a major haircut coming up.
Yeah, I
soon.
mean that's what I've noticed. You know, Joe, in my my Peninsula tank, I've got the flow really cranking through that thing, and I've got a lot of acros that don't normally table that are tabling on me.
Yes, morphology changes, dramatically. And again, when we first set the pump up with Alex, at 35%, this reef was going to blow apart, and at 72%, I can crank it to 85% now, and I mean things are rocking. But that's
how much, Joe? How much of like direct flow versus indirect flow do you have in that tank? I mean, are certain corals like just getting slammed by flow, or are you trying to make it as much of an indirect flow as possible?
So there's a number of fixed return lines on a closed loop pump. So I do have some sand filters on this tank for mechanical filtration. There are 7 1-inch sea swirls on this tank, kind of a forgotten technology. They swing an arc of 90 degrees. They're great for slicing through and creating all these eddies. There's the Carlson surge device. There's the Panta Ray. I forget the model number, but it's their large pump in the back. So there's, and then I vary that, like I'll change the frequency on that one to really rapid to really rock the tank. So I wouldn't say I'm like, I think it's just coming back, and I'll go back to my Greg Scheimer moments of just like, this is a little bit more proof of just make sure you have enough flow for the corals and what they need. And then you can tweak some stuff and change some frequencies and, rock the tank and storm the tank. I definitely love storming the tank and getting those dead areas cleaned out. Yeah, it's just, again, mass water movements through, let's see, like kind of just in like this, there's a groove here that cuts diagonally across the tank. In the back of that, but you can't see it, is a 2-inch return line from the closed loop that's got a 2-inch eductor on it. So it's creating a much stronger velocity plus bringing in some flow. And those work really well as long as you're not worrying about how far it's going to reach. I mean, we talked about that a little bit also earlier with your pumps, and Alex talking about, like, if your pumps are only on for, randomly for 2 to 3 seconds or whatever, there's no reach there. The energy is not reaching. So like on my tank is small enough with the deductors, move a tremendous amount of water, but on bigger tanks where they thought it would be a good idea, and I thought it would be a good idea, they just don't have the reach versus just putting in one larger pipe to really project that flow. But each groove has, and I usually try to put some soft corals in different areas to show the flow. Otherwise, because we are a public aquarium, if it's just a bunch of rigid sticks, they just think they're colorful rocks, right? So by putting in some soft corals or some gorgonia, that they can see the movement and the actual flow that's in that area.
Pretty freaking awesome.
At the Academy, at the big tank at the Steinhardt, we had racks of eductors because at the time people said, thought that was the thing to do. And it did not throw the water. There was there wasn't enough motion. And we replaced those with just openings, and we got a much further fire hose of water. So the water moved better. They're great for mixing is what they're made for.
It's like a 4-to-1 ratio or something.
Yeah.
But
Alex, who's smarter than all of us.
Combined.
I wouldn't say so. But for eductors, that it's not very, very often that's referred to as like a magic device that creates more flow out of whatever. It does not. What an eductor does, it trades head pressure into flow rate. Right. And because back in the days, we only had pumps that, we had very shitty aquarium pumps that didn't do much as return pumps. And then we had the professional industrial pumps. And they were all built for more head pressure than we need. So in every public aquarium that's older than 10 years, you'll find those pumps that are rated for, let's say, 50 or 80 or 150 feet of head pressure, and they are being used as a closed loop pump. If you put an eductor, and they're not moving a lot of water because they can create this high head pressure, and you can't do both. It's just physics. So the geometry of a pump head very much defines on how much volume you can pump at what pressure. So the larger the diameter of the pump head or the pump wheel, the higher the pressure, and the higher the wheel, the higher the volume. So to get that space, but you can't, you have to build a giant pump to get both. Yeah. So now you have those pumps in place, and the pump is running at could run at 150 feet and will still be efficient. And that's where the main efficiency point is then maybe at 60 feet. So what you do is you add an eductor and you trade in that head pressure that you don't need, and then it adds more flow. That's where it makes sense. Yeah. But nowadays, nowadays every DC pump that's on the market right now from any manufacturer, basically, whether it's from Chinese manufacturers or Italian or American or ours, I would say they're very much more efficient than any pressure pump with an eductor on it. 100%.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I had before I had the eductors on there, it was just open piping. So basically the eductor, you're just restricting the diameter. So the water has to come out faster if the pump can handle. So the velocity increased, and the sand that used to stay in one spot all got blew to the front of the tank. Yeah. But just like you're saying, the pump can do that because of if the pump couldn't, then it wouldn't be able to push that water through that smaller diameter.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. That's just for that eductor thing.
Yeah, basically no free lunch.
No, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, that's really
there is no free lunch.
Yeah.
What about this is a question from John Wright. How much does surface flow affect pH? I mean, should we should reefers be striving to generate as much surface agitation as possible to help stabilize that pH? Is that a thing that
only if this? It depends on the CO2 level in the room.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. High CO2, then you're going to get more of that into the tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, if you've got an overflow that goes down a drain into a sump, you're getting a lot of gas exchange through there. So, if you've got a static tank with no sump, and you've just got pumps inside of it, no hang-on back filter or anything, you need some surface agitation to get gas exchange. But if you've got a hang-on back pump or you've got an overflow, you're getting a lot of gas exchange.
So how many people actually measure? Sorry, go ahead.
Or a little fountain.
A little fountain.
Just saying.
Very soothing.
I want one that looks like Alex.
A little
spouting water. A little Alex spouting water.
Yeah.
Dong, you're going to say?
Oh, how many people actually measure the oxygen level in their reef tank?
I've got a meter. It was a pain in the ass to use, so I stopped trying. But I want to dig it out. I'll dig it out next time I have coral babies. But not many people. They're not cheap.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have one here at the aquarium. I think I've measured it just a few times in 26 years, and it's always been roughly like 106% or so, like just morning and night between the big protein skimmers are on there. I mean, the one skimmer that I built on this tank since we opened has had 4,600,000,000 gallons go through it. So some crazy numbers coming out of being running for so long.
Just like your heart.
Yes. Don't remind me. Thanks, pal.
Hey, Dong, you had some Dong, you had some questions I know about flow and polyp extension on SPS, and also how it impacts potentially damages fleshy coral like acan and meat corals and whatnot. You want to kind of get into those topics while we still have our panelists for a few more minutes, 20 minutes?
Yeah, that is why I asked that in the ocean, what those euphilia or hammer frog spawn, what kind of flow they're exposed to. That's the reason. Like that.
Rather than this.
Yeah, especially their skeleton is so sharp. Sometimes a strong flow just press their flesh against their skeleton and cut themselves internally. But that's kind of fantastic way to do it, right? Cut yourself internally.
I would say if that's happening, there's too much flow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
there is something called too much flow. Yeah, for certain coral, there is. Yeah,
they're big water balloons. They're retracted in the morning and they fill up with a big water balloon. And you don't want those cuts and tears, because then the protozoans and the helicostomas are going to settle in that are opportunistic, and brown jelly and everything else that comes along with it. So again, it's just proper placement and where you're going to put those fleshier corals that will not enjoy that.
They can take more flow than you think, but it can't be abrupt. It's gotta build up in a way that they can inflate as it builds up, and then they can adapt to take it. But if you just blast them, they're gonna pop.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that the water pressure of the flow versus the big fleshy coral.
Yeah,
something like that.
A diffused flow versus a water hose.
Yeah, just press against the fresh.
Yeah, it's like direct sunlight versus diffused light. It's the same kind of thing. The more, if the whole body of water is moving evenly, it's moving a lot of water, but it's not got a lot of direct pressure.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, you see that on Joe's tank behind him right now. I mean, the surface is moving crazy, and in that water column between the glass and the first row of corals that you see there, there's a very, very high flow speed. I mean, that's probably like 2 feet per second or something like that going on. And of course, if you would place all your corals exactly in that beam of water, wouldn't be a good idea, because at some point you'll just blow the tissue off. So, but as Flo has as Joe has the was a Freudian slip there. If you he has the one pump pointing to the right, and then the pump in the rear is going to the left. So he's moving the whole column of water and keeping that going. So that momentum is in that mass. And so everywhere that water column moves across, you'll have that flow speed touching the corals, and then as the corals go bigger, or as you go deeper into the water column, that flow is being reduced by the coral surface and also by the walls and by the sand. That's all where you have those micro vortices forming, and that's basically creating friction. So you'll find, even in that tank, you'll find a spot where you can perfectly place, like a hammer coral or a very sensitive, like bubble coral or whatever. And they will still have their spot, because you will have something in the shade of a bigger animal that, where they can stay perfectly. You just have to, like, a reef aquarium like that is not, you don't get to choose, like, oh, I want this in the front on top. Like, sometimes that just doesn't work. You have to understand that this animal just needs something different than where you want it to stay at. And if you do that wrong, that the animal will just die. That's it.
So is it true that because that for people that keep SPS, so sometimes frequently you can see online the social media, they say, oh, random flow to give you better polyp extension. Is it really true or no? And what exactly is random flow?
Yeah.
Be right.
Good question.
Good. Keep
Joe's
going.
already leaving.
Random.
My battery's running low.
Chased
I gotta
him
get
away.
my charger. When I hear polyp extension, I get nervous. I gotta get
pee
an
break?
exam, and I don't want to hear about polyps. So
Don't take that. Don't take the microphone into the bathroom.
that's right.
I would say.
Go ahead.
What we could. I just had the chance recently to see some effect on polyp extension by just adding flow to a tank. So I was recently at a very large aquarium in China, and they had basically zero flow in the whole tank. And you would see many corals not being expanded at all. There were no polyps sticking out, even on very easy to keep softies like Zacophyton. I don't know what the English fancy name for that is, but those leather corals. Yeah, the leather corals with the long polyps coming out.
Yeah, that's a toadstool.
Elegans. Toadstool?
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
Is it right?
But yeah, in Europe we all do these Latin things and metric, so there's very often a communication problem. But yeah, even those were just completely like crumbled, or you had like these soft corals that would just hang down and have this sort of grayish color to it, and not this pink vital skin color, And then we added the flow pump in one segment of the tank and let that run overnight. And it was just adding a constant flow throughout the tank. It was a The segment of the tank was like a cylinder. And the next morning we came in, and I was there with Claude, and he knows corals much better than I do, but even I could tell this is a completely different look. After 8 hours of water movement in the tank, all of these corals had their polyps extended, like to the max. And they haven't seen that in the tank for as long as it's been up in that region, because there was no flow. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily random flow that gives you better polyp extension. I would say as soon as the coral feels that there's nutrients and nutrient export and the right KH, then it's interesting for the coral maybe, and it gets that, idea of, hey, maybe I should exchange the polyp, maybe I should expand the polyp because there might be food, or I might be able to get something out of it. And that specific speed, that name, Rich also mentioned that at Reef Retreat. This is also one of my favorite topics, is that boundary layer of a coral. So if there's not enough flow, the water can move freely, and then you have your flow, and water tends to move around obstacles, and the water right on the obstacle, and that might be now the coral skeleton or the coral's tissue, it just moves around, and there's going to be, if you look at it microscopically, there's going to be vortices, and they create this friction. So the main water is just passing by the coral, and it's just going over the coral, and the coral doesn't feel it. So you have to reach a certain speed to actually exchange the water on their tissue. So if you would take a syringe and in a very slow running or slow flow tank, you would take a syringe and you would just microscopically just drag, little amounts of water directly at the coral's tissue, you would actually see that water has a different KH than the water that's in your main water column, which is being stirred around very nicely. So that coral is suffering. So you can have perfect water parameters, but if they don't get to the coral skin or tissue, they don't feel it, and they can't use everything you pour into the tank. Like you can add the fanciest trace elements, if they don't reach the skin, because you have to bring all these elements to the coral. As Rich said, they are sessile, they can't move, so they can't just go. And if they don't even get the idea that there might be anything interesting, like coral food, for example, you add coral food, you usually get a food response, but only if the coral knows there's food. If the wind's blowing too fast in front of your nose, you don't know whether someone's cooking something nice or not. Like how are you gonna point your nose and go like, oh, that smells yummy? That's what corals do, basically. They smell, and if they don't smell anything yummy, they don't expand. Why should they? Nature
so in general,
very, very efficient.
So in general, that the higher the flow rate going through the skin of the coral, the thinner the boundary layer, and then there's a better oxygen exchange. Also, that nutrient easy to get in and waste easy to get out.
Exactly.
In general, but there can be too much.
In general,
and there's also there's also new research that the cilia on coral polyps, some coral polyps, maybe all coral polyps, they're all probably different, but the cilia when there's enough flow, they actually start making vortices to break through that last part of the boundary layer. But there's got to be enough on top.
Charles Delbake, what's up there, Charles?
I'm sorry, who? I don't recognize that name. Just kidding, Charles.
Oh, Charles is going to be on next month. I believe that's we're going to have Charles back on. Yeah.
Awesome.
So here's a really good question that Rob is asking. I would love to see what I'd also love to see what the panel says about this. Does flow matter at night? Should flow be kept at lower levels and much higher during the day?
Who else has opinions besides me?
My opinion is I don't know, and I don't change it. They talk about like the seas being calmer at night was always the thing that was talked about decades ago, but I don't know if it's a thing, and if it's again, we have even at this size, it's just a small box. So do we really need to worry about that? I don't know.
So does the sea actually calmer at night?
No.
At the where the coral live?
No.
I don't know. I would say from my diving experience, but that might also be because you go diving at night when there's calm seas. But I always have that impression that at night it feels calmer, but that also just might be the more focused view and the more focused diving experience when you're doing a night dive. I would technically say, as we're not in the ocean, we're in an aquarium, I would say, doesn't matter. I don't give a damn. For me, the only reason to reduce something at night would be a visitor experience in a public aquarium or your personal preference. If you want to see a standing wave in your tank, do that and add that energy to your tank for your own pleasure or for whatever's pleasure if you think that helps. But switch it off at night. Like, just make sure you have enough water movement, but it doesn't have to look nice. So if you run a public aquarium, create a nice flow that gives customers or visitors the impression, oh, it looks awesome. But at night, you could reduce that just to save energy and get a better carbon footprint, and it would still be enough for the animals.
I think that's a great question about does it matter? We don't know. But as to does it change at night in the ocean, it changes mostly with the tides. And the tides progress across the day, changing about an hour every day. So, yeah. So about, sometimes you get the flood tide or the turnaround tide when you get kind of the most mixing. That changes when it happens over the 24 hours over the course of roughly 24 days. So the idea that it's calmer at night is not really true. There does tend to be some surface calming in the morning and in the at dawn and at dusk, but that's got to do with wind patterns. And, has the air heated up enough to start moving or not? But it can have nothing to do with what's going on underwater. And what Alex said about diving at night, you only go to the places where you're not going to get flooded out. I mean, it just you don't go to the place where the current's ripping, which is why sometimes you go to certain places. You go, oh, we're going to do this site, and they get there and they go, no, we're not going here. We're going somewhere else. So I like to have, because I'm dumb, I like to have 4 different kind of sections to the day, 6-hour sections. A flood tide, an ebb tide, a slack tide, and a ebb tide again. So there's the directions my tank moves changes over the course of the day in about 6-hour increments, because there are calm times and there are fast times in the ocean. Whether or not they progress like the ocean really does over 24 hours over the month probably doesn't matter. If there was an easy way to do it, I would connect it to the moon and have that done. But Apex decided there were more important things to work on than having that functionality. And I kind of don't blame them, because I'm a nut who would want to play with that. There's probably 4 other people who would care to do it. So
even on this board, there's 4 other people that want.
Maybe.
Okay. But that's a very, very good point, because I think there's, as we mentioned in the beginning, there's not the way to do things, as we all know. That you can be very successful with any equipment if you got the green thumb for things. You can get things to run, and you develop a feeling for it, and you can sort out problems with many different strategies. I bet Joe doesn't have a 6-hour time change somehow. No tidal
I
movement.
have very little of anything.
And we see that the tank looks like crap. It's because he doesn't have that tidal motion.
This is all AI.
No, so actually, by looking at your tank through this almost 2 hour, we probably see several times your toilet being flushed, the surge device. So
yeah,
how important is that surge device to that big tank?
it used to be, I think, super important. Now with the big Abyzz pump, I think it's far less. I contemplated on the reboot not pumping it back up because it doesn't have the reach. It doesn't have the velocity compared to the output of that pump. I did decrease the frequency of it. I used to have it dump about every 8 minutes. Now I have it dump about every 18 minutes. Part of the old reef geezer in me can't let it go. But I also think because it does do that dump, it just creates crazy randomness in the system. And I think it's still appreciated by a lot of the corals, especially the ones right behind me. It's also, I'm a public aquarium, so it does get people's attention and they see the wave and the lights refracting and reflecting off of it. So that's a part of it also.
One thing I
Does
did
that
notice
happen in the coral reef?
Yes.
This kind of dumping effect?
Sure.
Okay.
When waves come through?
It just looked like that. Just
Yeah, big
Yeah,
wave.
yeah, of course. I mean, there's storms in the ocean, right? And that's all the times that we don't see because we're not diving when there's storms, obviously. But you will get moments where you can hold on to any part of the rocks when you're diving. That's how high the flow rates get. But again, you get closer to the reef. I mean, that's why we learn when we're diving. Get to the ground or get to the side, get to some structure to get less flow, because the lower you are, the higher the friction for the main flow is of that water column passing you by. So it's easier to withstand that and work against it. But there's for sure times when you have those, columns of water just smashing reefs. And I mean, corals break off at some point, that as a hobbyist, we're all like, oh, what do we do? And in nature, it's just like, if you're a Montipora and you grow to like, I don't know how many square meters, at some point you'll just fall off by your own weight. It's just what happens. Yeah, exactly.
Burgers.
Stuff just falls over.
Here's another. Go ahead, Rich. I'm sorry.
I will make one case for having calm times in your tank. They don't have to be 6 hours, but 30 minutes to an hour. Is that your herbivores can pick at stuff that they might not be able to get to.
Yes.
Valid point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Finally, after 2 hours, we get a valid point from Richard. That's awesome. Thank you, Richard.
Just for you, AI tank man.
What about this question from Frugal Reefer John? I've heard that combining high flow and high alk increases coral growth. What are the panel stocks? Is this a myth or is that reality? What do you guys think?
I think the flow will definitely affect coral density as far as being able to withstand. I don't know anything about the alkalinity side of things.
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything that makes sense to that as well. The high flow does usually for all the animals that need flow, like even if you have lamellaria or kelp, the higher the flow is initially, the stronger it grows and the attachment gets stronger. And the same with coral skeletons, but I have no idea whether KH would have an effect.
I after what I saw on my Europe trip, my Europe reef trip that Reef Beef did, I don't think alk makes much of a difference. Almost everybody at every place in 11 countries we saw in Europe was keeping their tank between 6 and 7 DKH.
Wow.
So
wow,
and
6 to 7.
Yeah, and no problem with growth going on in a lot of these tanks. So I'm off the alk train is increasing anything useful. Just have some consistent alk.
All right, one final question. I'm going to we'll let you guys go. How do you know you have enough flow in a reef tank? And people have asked me that question, and what I'll say is, for like an SPS dominant tank or even like a mixed reef, if you're seeing polyp movement in every part of the tank, then pretty much you should know that you've got enough flow in that tank. And obviously you got to look at the health of the animals, but is there something that you guys on the panel can say to reefers in terms of pay attention to this, in terms of you've got enough flow in your tank?
I would say no. I would say you got to play with it. So start with the flow, whatever you think it is, and start sneaking it up and see what effect it has on the animals. Corals don't lie; they'll tell you what's going on and if they're liking it or not. And sneak it up and keep sneaking it up till either you're out of head pressure or headroom, or your corals are mad at you, or there's some other effect in the tank you don't like. Sneak in and out of it and see what you think, and see what the corals think, would be my unappealing and uninformative answer.
Joe, what do you think?
I would think that Rich just said a lot of good things, and then also
What?
I think just looking at the coral shapes and the morphology and how they're growing, if they have that more natural look to them, then you're meeting the demand. Every tank is different, but if you've got a frag from a friend and his is growing in a certain way or hers is growing in a certain way, and then you put it in your tank and it's kind of mutant and awkward, it might just be the flow.
It could be, but then, as we all know, there's so many different things.
Yep.
Nobody knows in the end whether your water is different than his, or the flow, or the food, or the light, or whatever. I always, as Rich said as well, look at the tank. I also saw someone mentioning like affordable flow meters for tanks. I think that's all nonsense for hobbyist use. We do have those things for testing out, and it's once you have something that measures correctly, it's going to be a very expensive hobby to do so. But what really helps is just get a little, like a tiny, carbon fiber rod or whatever material you use, and just put some what is it, like a band or something on it,
String,
and then just
ribbon.
like a ribbon, like and if you think you have areas in your tank where there's no flow, just go in there with the stick and have a look. It clearly shows you whether there's water movement or not. And maybe you need to improve that. And you can also find out when you just use a cheap little power head that you can buy, and you just blow in some corners while you're cleaning the tank. Where there's the most detritus coming out, there might be, over the time span of the day, the least flow. So those would be points I would look for. Like on my reef, I know there's no detritus lying around anywhere. So I know the theory works that I've done, but I'm also just watching the tank and seeing, okay, is everything moving nicely? I worry much more about the anemone moving because of flow changes than anything else. So that's like the worst thing that can happen, because I got like this size of an anemone and it's burning everything where it's moving. So that's much more annoying than having a flow issue that you can sort out much easier.
Hey, listen,
or you can just dump a whole pound of mices in your tank.
Yeah,
that's it. Right?
Listen, guys, Dong and I want to thank you so much for this pretty awesome discussion. I know I learned a lot. Hopefully, everybody that was watching and tuning in learned something new tonight too. Alex, dude, man, I think you got to get to bed, man. It's like what, 3 o'clock in the morning there or something like that.
Yeah.
You're a rock star, dude.
I'll probably go to bed.
Any final thoughts before we sign off?
Just a final thought from here, just on any if anybody wants to come and visit, just find me online. I often just bump into people. I know they're reef keepers because I walk by the tank, and an hour later I walk by and they haven't moved. And then I sidle up to them and be like, "Hey, you have a reef tank at home?" And they're like, how do you know? And I'm like, you haven't moved in an hour, so you want to go see the tank? And I take them up top, and it's now officially known as a melev. It's from a Mark Levinson situation. So if you want to get a melev, just anybody who happens to be listening, find me online. Let me know you're in the area, and I'm always happy to make time and show you folks around here.
Or you can just stand in front of the tank, not moving.
Yeah. You could do that
for an hour.
Go to Reef Retreat, and you can come here before that and have a bunch of great beer and pizza sitting in front of this tank. It's a good way to spend an evening.
That sounds pretty friggin' awesome.
I've eaten a lot of pizza and drank a lot of beer in front of this tank in 26 years. So.
Yeah, weirdly, we don't see that on you as well. If you look at me, it's like I
got to stay thin to get in between all these big corals. That's why.
All right.
Yeah, that's my incentive.
Rich, Reef Beef, Reef Retreat, all good things going on, right, man?
All good things going on. Reef Beef is chugging along. We got a lot of footage from the European trip that hopefully find time to edit. We have so much footage, so many incredible things. And Reef Retreat, I think it's in June 5th and 6th next year. Tickets are not on sale yet. It will sell out again. We're really excited about that event.
People got to jump on it right away, man. You know,
and we are doing the pre-Reef Retreat again here. So folks can come here. We've got the hotel right next door. You come here, hang out for the day at the aquarium, private showing in front of the tank with good food and good drink and some of the best company you will ever find.
In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow, so planning meeting tomorrow. Yeah,
good.
No complaints. New tank going in. Everything's great.
Alex, any final things you want to mention there? Any new products or whatnot that?
No, I'm not gonna do that product thing. But
I teed it up for you, but you know that's
cool. The same invitation goes for us. If anyone is flying or traveling to or through Germany, hit me up, and we have an open company, and the people that have visited us, they know that. I'm always up for meeting people and showing them the company and showing them the reef tank, and just having a coffee or a beer in front of the reef tank is great. So visit us, and if you have questions, we're always there. Just give us a call or send us an email, and we'll help as good as we can.
All right. Well, listen, thanks, guys. And I also want to thank our sponsors one more time, Polo Reef. Make sure you check out the latest videos from Polo Reef on YouTube. The rebuild of the 17,000-gallon reef keeps moving forward. And in the last video, the team relives the recent journey of the reef from what happened to where we are today. The team goes into fail-safe mode, checking everything they can think of to make sure future incidents are prevented. The Polo Reef team takes this opportunity to remind all reefers to take some time this summer to check all points and components of the reef tanks. A thriving reef can quickly go south over a simple equipment failure, so take the time to check each component of your system and do a little proactive maintenance to ensure your reef continues to thrive. It's a very important PSA from Polo Reef. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to @Polo Reef on YouTube so you don't miss any of the new videos when they drop. Champion Lighting and Supply, thanks to Todd and the folks for supporting the show. Fiji Live Rock is back. They've got a whole bunch of new batch that's ready to ship out. It's they offer Pukani branch and shelf rock from Fiji, as well as cured Indo Live Rock. Use coupon code ReefBum and get 15% off your next rock purchase. Visit championlighting.com to order. Big thank you to Paul, who is a moderator as well as president of the Boston Reefers Society, as well as our other moderator, Greg Carroll, who is president of the Southern California Marine Aquarium Society. Please join and support your local reefing clubs. They are so important to this hobby. Finally, I will let you know that all episodes of Rappin With ReefBum are available as podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Amazon. Our next Rappin With ReefBum live stream will be on Tuesday, September 22nd, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our guest will be Claude Schumacher, another German person there that'll be coming to us live in the wee hours of the morning in Germany. Charles Delbake, and Mike Paletta. We're going to be talking about calcium and alkalinity supplementation. So until then, be safe and be well. Later.